Well, hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining us for another week of Life Groups. I hope that you had an awesome week last week. Before we jump into today's discussion, I just wanted to really quickly remind you that it's important to keep the conversation uplifting and encouraging. And as always, please make sure that you're being mindful of others' feelings whenever you're sharing. So in case you missed it, this past weekend, Pastor Tom was in week 3 of All Day, Every Day. All Day, Every Day is a reference to developing a habit and a routine and a rhythm of faith in our lives. And as we're in this series, we're going through the book of James. Now, James is the half-brother of Jesus, and to recap, he wrote this book to Jewish believers who are not acting out and practicing their faith in their daily lives. The letter really is an encouragement to us as Christians to develop that routine and habit of faith so that we can better know God, and as we'll find out today, better love others. So as we get into today's discussion, there's going to be several questions, and feel free as a group to pause the video at any point in time, and feel free to take time as you go through the answers. If one of the questions leads to another question and you start kind of rabbit trailing in another direction, that's absolutely fine. There's no pressure to get through this entire video. These questions are simply here to help inspire and stimulate some conversation within your group. So let's jump in. This past weekend in his message, Pastor Tom had 3 main points. The first point is very simple. Be kind. Be kind to others. Go ahead and take a look at this clip before we get into our questions.
James, and I talked about this last week, that there's times in our life we need to examine our life. And James is basically giving us an instrument right now where we can examine our life. He's given us a way to measure our faith. Do you show favoritism? Bing! If you're showing favoritism, guess what? Maybe you need to examine your life. Maybe you need to exercise more faith. Your spiritual muscles are getting weak. Do you know that kindness requires faith? Not everyone in this world has good motives. Not everybody is super likable. There are times in your life it's going to require kindness to be able to show that kindness to someone else. In fact, in Colossians 3:12, it states that we are to put on kindness.
So Pastor Tom touched on it in his message, and also in some private conversations that I had with him this week. He mentioned to me, kindness has the potential to have the biggest impact on our lives. Take a minute and just think about that. Being kind to others has the potential to be the greatest impact on our lives. So as we get started, very simple question. How this week can we be kind to others? Go ahead, pause the video right there. I hope that you had some great conversation there. I know it's a simple question, but sometimes it's the simplest questions that reveal the most about us and the most about the opportunities that we have to practice our faith on a daily basis. So in the sermon series this past weekend, Pastor Tom's second point was that it's important that we're open to everyone. And this was probably one of the most important segments during his message. Go ahead and take a look at this clip.
Another way that we strengthen our faith is by being open to everyone. Meaning, don't judge people by their lifestyle. You haven't walked in everybody's shoes. Our perceptions or opinions come from our education, our background, our experiences. We all come from different places. We've grown up in different homes. We've had different parents. We've had you might have grown up rich. You might have grown up poor. All these things, guess what? They have influence on your life. Too many times we judge according to our perception or our opinion. God's word states that only God is qualified to judge because he knows the person's heart. Jesus was fair-minded, meaning that he recognized the difficulties that people were struggling with. The leper, the Samaritan woman at the well.
So you heard at the very end of that clip, Pastor Tom mentions the Samaritan woman at the well. And if you haven't heard that story, go ahead and pause the video and have someone in your group read John 4:4. And in this verse, it describes the Samaritan woman at the well. Now, for most of us who have heard the story before and heard many Bible stories, oftentimes what we'll do is we'll put ourselves in the place of Jesus, and we'll try and see ourselves in that role and how we would interact with the world and how we might respond. But I was talking with Pastor Brett earlier today, and he made a great point. In this particular story, the way we need to see ourselves is as the Samaritan woman. And this ultimately helps us understand the role that faith is going to play in our lives. Being open to everyone is very difficult, especially in today's climate. And I don't think I need to explain any further on what it is that you might be feeling or thinking or going through, just simply when I say that. But the whole idea of being a Christian and being a good Christian, as we'll find out in James, is that we need to understand and respect and love everybody, no matter what their thoughts or feelings or beliefs might be. That's how we be a light or a city on a hill that shines light for all the world to see. And also it helps us transform and grow ourselves as we fight those urges to have judgmental thoughts and feelings towards people. So this next question is a pretty big one, and I'll give you plenty of time to talk through it. But let me ask you this: why is it so hard to love somebody that you disagree with? Go ahead and pause the video right here. I hope that you have a great discussion, and I'll talk to you in a minute. I hope that you had some great discussion there, and I hope that maybe some things came to light on why it's so difficult sometimes to love people who don't always believe or act or think the way that you do. So Pastor Tom's final point this weekend was all about how we need to be loving and kind and merciful to others. He talked about kindness as something that we put on, almost like the way we put on our clothes in the morning. We spend time digging through our closet, finding that perfect outfit for the right occasion. And so what we need to do is recognize that there's always an occasion for kindness, and every morning we need to put that on first. So go ahead and take a quick look at this clip from Pastor Tom this weekend.
That's one of the most deceptive things that I see as followers of Jesus Christ. Is I see sometimes, including myself, I think I'm walking in faith. But all of a sudden I start self-examining them, so wait a minute, my actions aren't aligning up with my faith. And this is what James is writing about. Make sure that your actions align with your faith. Otherwise, maybe you're being deceptive to yourself, and the faith that you have in God is still really choosing that, changing your heart, because you're not allowing it to. We got to allow it to change our heart. James is telling us in verse 10, it was very interesting. He says, if you've broken one law, then you are guilty of breaking all the laws. Remember, he talked about thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not commit adultery. But man, if you've murdered, you've broken all the laws. And what James is telling each and every one of us today, he says the royal law, the law of the kingdom, the law of God, the royal law is to love God and love others. But if you're showing favoritism to some and not to others, then by just breaking that one rule, you've really broken all the rules.
So it's important that we are merciful towards others as we expect God to be merciful towards us. So my final question for you today is, describe a time in your life when somebody showed you mercy, and how did that impact your life? That person's merciful love and forgiveness and grace for you, how did that impact your life? Go ahead and pause the video right there. I hope that today's discussion challenged you a little bit. I hope that it helped you to potentially spot some areas in your life where you can put kindness on and show mercy and show love to others, especially when they may not act or think or be on your side of everything. So tonight, before we end, I just wanted to show you a really cool clip. Now, a lot of times when it comes to having enemies or thinking differently, we think about sports. I don't want to go too much into politics right now, but sports is always a great metaphor for life because two opposing forces are working so hard and competing against each other. But what happens when we actually see the other person for who they are and show them mercy and love? Check out this clip.
This hill taking a toll on a couple runners.
One in particular, a runner from Boston College, collapsed.
She had hit the wall and, she is completely probably dehydrated, depleted.
Most runners would speed past, but Clemson senior Evie Tate says instincts told her to stop.
What a tremendous show of sportsmanship as you've got an athlete who can't quite make it, and they've got a team, a girl from another team trying to help her to the finish line.
Using words of encouragement, Tate says she tried to help the BC runner to her feet.
I thought it was going to take us all day to finish.
Seconds later, another runner, this one from Louisville, stops to lend a shoulder. Together, they drag her 20 yards to the finish line.
But you sacrifice your own position to help another athlete finish what they started.
I think it's because not just me, I think all runners have a mutual respect for one another, because we know our sport is so hard.
And although the video makes her look like a hero, Tate says it's the runner from BC that was unbelievably tough.
I think that says a lot about her as a runner and as a person, because that shows that she put every single ounce of her energy into that.
Tate didn't get a best time or score for the team, but she did leave an impression, one that Clemson and the entire sports community can be proud of. Brenna McDavid, WYFF News 4 in Clemson.
Well, there you have it. Hopefully tonight was a great group. I hope that you were encouraged, uplifted, challenged a little bit. And just as a quick reminder, if you want to catch up on this past weekend's message, you can listen to it on the podcast, or you can watch it at southcoastchristian.com on our vodcast or on YouTube. And for all other questions, feel free to check out southcoastchristian.com. From all of us here at South Coast, we love you. We're praying for you. Have a great week. God bless.